Okay, so today we're going to briefly look at an introduction of organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is a branch of chemistry that looks at carbon, excluding the carbon oxides and the carbonates. And then under organic chemistry at school level, we look at the hydrocarbons. So these hydrocarbons by definition are simply defined as organic molecules that are made up of hydrogen and carbon only. So you must understand that hydrocarbons have got types, and then these types are saturated hydrocarbons and unsaturated hydrocarbons. So if you look at this screen, you're able to observe that I have drawn these two structures there. The one that contains single bonds there is showing a saturated hydrocarbon. And then the one that has these double bonds there is showing the unsaturated hydrocarbon. So you need to know that saturated hydrocarbons, these are hydrocarbons that contain single bonds. And then on the other hand, the unsaturated hydrocarbons, these are hydrocarbons that contain double bonds. In some cases, you need to know that they equally can contain what we call triple bonds. So unsaturated hydrocarbons will contain double bonds or triple bonds, whilst the saturated hydrocarbons will contain only these single bonds there. So now, when it comes to the naming of hydrocarbons, you need to know that the name of a particular hydrocarbon is going to be determined depending on the number of carbon that particular hydrocarbon contains. So we have this table that I've drawn here. You need to know that we have the prefix that we use for each particular hydrocarbon depending on the number of carbon they contain. So if a particular hydrocarbon contains one carbon in it, its name is going to start with meth. If it contains 2 carbon there, it is going to start with eth. If it has 3 carbon, it is going to start with prop. If it has 4 carbon, it is going to start with bat. If it has 5, it will be pent, 6 hex, 7 hept, 8 oct, 9 non, 10 dec. So if we look at these structures that I've drawn, you are able to observe that I have even written ethane there, ethan there, and then I have ethene this side. So you need to know that this particular first part there is showing what we are calling the prefix there. So depending on this same table, it will apply to all these other groups of organic compounds that you're going to encounter. So you need to know that at the end of that particular prefix, now that's where you include the family name of the homologous series to which a particular hydrocarbon belongs. So with that said, we have said that this is called ethane depending on the fact that it has 2 carbon in it. If it had 3 carbon in it, it would have been propan. And in this case also, this is being called ethane because it has 2 carbon in it. So if it had more carbon in it, we would have used this same table to name that particular hydrocarbon. Remember that before you can give any particular name of a particular hydrocarbon, you have to count the number of carbon it contains and then use this same table to determine the prefix that its name is going to have. And then at the end of that particular hydrocarbon, you are now going to get the last 3 letters of that particular group and then attach to that prefix and then come up with that name. So in this case, you need to know that ethan belongs to the alkanes and then ethene belongs to the alkenes. So with that information given, you are expected now to look at what is referred to the general formula, and then apart from that, you are also expected to look at some of the properties of each particular family which they belong, because you will need that to come up with the other structures. So with that information given, it's very important for you to know these by heart. You need to know these prefixes by heart, and equally, you are also expected to know how to differentiate a saturated hydrocarbon from a unsaturated hydrocarbon. And you should be able to give the reason stating that the presence of single bonds is what makes a particular hydrocarbon saturated, and the presence of the double bond or triple bond is what makes a particular hydrocarbon to be considered unsaturated. So we'll continue from there.